Ohio State is promoting Brian Hartline to offensive coordinator.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to another bonus episode right here on Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And during this Buckeye Blitz, we'll dive into Ohio State's new offensive line and quarterback coaches. But first, Ohio State is promoting Brian Hartline to offensive coordinator. And there are numerous things to like about this promotion for Brian Hartline. It seems like he has been in line to get this promotion once again, and he got it after Chip Kelly left for the NFL. And this may have been the plan all along when Chip Kelly was hired, that whenever Chip Kelly left, that Brian Hartline would be the next guy in line to take that role of offensive coordinator. Brian Hartline's a great recruiter. We have seen a track record of success that has put him at the top of the receiving recruiting in the country. He's a great developer of talent. Jeremiah Smith this year. You have Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and others. Go back to Terry McLaurin. There are a lot of guys that Brian Hartline has developed and has been very hands-on with, and it shows up in big ways on the football field. Brian Hartline is also a novice, and I don't think this is the time to make a novice the offensive coordinator of Ohio State, especially when Ohio State's trying to run it back in 2025. Now, that could be the only negative part about this hire, but that's a very big part. When you're trying to run it back and go back-to-back and win the Natty in 2024 and 2025, you want to make sure the person running the offensive side of the ball is a guy that can run it, that has experience, has a track record of success, that can be a guy that can command the room right away. And I think Brian Hartline can command the room. I'm not saying he can't. But there's a track record of success, and even these high school kids, they'll look at it and they'll search and they'll dig and they'll say, hey, man, you ain't done this before. Now, Ohio State might not get a lot of those guys in-house, but that's something very, very important that I think might be missing in 2024 or maybe could not be a problem at all. But my first thought, we talked about it here on the show, was go out and get a guy that's experienced as a head coach, that has a great offensive mind, a well-respected person leading offenses in college football or in the National Football League, and bring that person in. Now, maybe with the time period that Ryan Day took between Chip Kelly leaving and promoting Brian Hartline, maybe there were some things that Ryan Day did to try to lure somebody else in that fit certain criteria, and maybe things just didn't go the way that he wanted them to go. Or maybe things took a little bit longer if this was the plan when Chip Kelly left, that Brian Hartline maybe wanted a little bit more money, or Ryan Day wanted to fill in the other offensive coaching staff spots before announcing the promotion. I have no idea. This may have been the plan all along, and if it was, cool. But there are still questions about it. We can question things when somebody gets hired or promoted because it's what we do. We have opinions, and we share them here on the show. But if Ohio State lost Brian Hartline at any point in time, maybe when he interviewed for the Cincy job, or maybe when he interviewed for the West Virginia job this year. Maybe if he were to leave for one of those jobs, you lose Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, maybe a Bryson Rogers, maybe a Quincy Porter. Maybe you lose Chris Henry Jr., who's not even here yet, but he's the number one receiver in the class of 2026, and he definitely looks the part. When I watch him play the football, he is one of those dudes at the high school level. Maybe you lose those guys. Maybe you lose more. Maybe you take a massive dip in recruiting. I don't know. But all those things are actually things that I think Ryan Day was thinking about. Do I want to lose Jeremiah Smith? Absolutely not. Do I want to lose my top 3 receivers in the room, or maybe 4 or 5 of the top 7? No, absolutely not. So what can I do to keep him? Keep Brian Hartline. I think this is a massive move for Ohio State recruiting in general. Not just with recruiting and retaining the guys on the roster, but also with guys like Chris Henry Jr. and others. I think moving forward, you're going to see Brian Hartline's impact all across offensive recruiting. We're going to talk more about O-line recruiting in the very next segment, but I think even Brian Hartline can help the O-line recruiting because he is great at building relationships. And with him being more hands-on moving forward with Ohio State's offense, this is going to help the offensive linemen, the running backs, and everybody out there make sure every position on offense doesn't have a deficit, doesn't become a weak link. You can make sure with Brian Hartline here, because of his track record of success, leading his own room, developing that room, being influential with the offense, I think you can trust that other rooms across Ohio State's offense will be very, very strong across the board. If there's a weak link, we know there will be a weak link. It won't be such a massive weak link that we can't overcome it. That's not something I think is going to happen. But what has happened is Ohio State has filled in their O-line coaching vacancy, and they filled in their QB coaching vacancy. We'll talk about those next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Looking for tickets to your next big event? Whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and guys, I couldn't believe the value. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue. It's so reassuring. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes and making this show a part of your day. And one thing that will be a part of your first listen tomorrow will be Locked On Buckeyes on a Thursday. That show was recorded prior to the Brian Hartline news breaking, because I would have made a whole show. I mean, we would have just made that the Thursday show, but we wanted to give you a little extra right here on a Wednesday evening after Brian Hartline's promotion has been announced. Not only was Brian Hartline's promotion announced, there were also two more guys that were added to Ohio State's assistant coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball that were pretty big hires, and they were really big deals. One of them is Tyler Bowen. He was the offensive coordinator at Virginia Tech. He is now Ohio State's offensive line coach, replacing Justin Fry. And then Billy Fessler, who was an offensive analyst last year at Ohio State. He is now Ohio State's quarterback coach this year. And that name, Billy Fessler, has been one that has been talked about for a very long time, at least in this year. Will Howard credits Billy Fessler for a lot of his development and a lot of his growth this year for the way that Will Howard played. He not only talks about Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, but he gives a lot of credit to Billy Fessler and his work with Howard throughout the season. But Tyler Bowen's another one, and that's one that maybe a lot of people hadn't heard that name before. He is 35 years old, from Helena, Georgia. Played college, went to Maryland, was a student assistant at Maryland in 2010. He's been at a lot of schools along the way. Fordham. He was with James Franklin at Penn State from 2018 to 2019, or to 2020. He was with Urban Meyer in 2021. Then went to Virginia Tech from the 2022 to 2024 seasons, and now he's at Ohio State. I go back to Penn State on purpose because I think with the Penn State thing, that says a lot about him as a recruiter. Because James Franklin is a guy that makes sure his guys work, his guys grind. And when you get a guy that's been a grinder, that's been working, and also that's willing to go from being the OC at a ACC school to being an O-line coach, that says a lot about him. That says a lot about him and his career, and the ability for him to take a step back a little bit, take a different job, come to Ohio State in what is going to be a very important year for Ohio State, and take a role that is with a unit that, if everything goes well, Ohio State's offensive line is going to be one of the best ones, not only in the Big Ten, it has the opportunity to be one of the best offensive lines in the country. And so Tyler Bowen coming in, and I think him working with in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer is probably a big reason why he's at Ohio State. Because I know Ryan Day and Urban Meyer are close, and Ryan Day calls him and talks to him, and Urban Meyer stays around the program as much as he can. If something just tells me, as I'm saying this right now, that Ryan Day made a phone call or 2 or 10 to Urban Meyer about Tyler Bowen and trying to sift through all of the stuff, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff to see if he was the right man for the job. And all accounts he is. Don't have enough data because he just got to campus to know if he is going to drastically boost the online recruiting or drastically boost the run game or drastically boost this or that. We don't have enough days of him on the job in Columbus, Ohio to know that just yet. But I got a belief that Ryan Day, as he's knocked a lot of hires out of the park, that he knocked this one out too. The Billy Fessler one doesn't surprise me. I said all along, if you're going to bring in an offensive coordinator from outside of the program, you're going to bring him in and have him work either with the O-line or work with the quarterback. When you promote Brian Hartline, he's already with the receivers, at least 2 of the offensive spots to fill in. Well, Billy Fessler seems like a no-brainer promotion. Cool, quarterback. Offensive line. A former OC, coaching the O-line, sign me up for that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I got no problems with that. So the offensive coaching staff is set. You have Tyler Bowen on the O-line, Coach Key with the tight ends. You got Hartline with the receivers and the offensive coordinator. You have Billy Fessler with the quarterbacks, Lachlan with the running backs, and Ryan Day is still running the whole entire operation. Not mad about it. Not mad about that at all. All the things about Brian Hartline that I don't know if he's going to be able to call plays or not, that stuff will be figured out. Ryan Day could run mock games and try to do things in scrimmages to run full games to get Brian Hartline some real live action in practice in the summer and the fall to try to figure everything out. Trust me, Ryan Day can figure this thing out as he goes. He's been coaching for a long time. That leaves just one more assistant coaching spot left. It's defensive coordinator. There are rumors that Ohio State's going to promote from within and make Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton co-defensive coordinators. I've also seen that Ryan Day might hire somebody from outside. Who knows what's going to happen? I've heard one rumor. I've heard another. I'm going to wait and see what Ryan Day decides to do. But all I do know is if Ryan Day decides to go with the co-DC promotion for Guerrieri and Tim Walton, I would love for Ryan Day to make that last assistant coaching hire to go with a defensive line coach to pair with Larry Johnson to bridge the gap and to pave the way for Larry Johnson's retirement. So there's no vacancy or there's no absence for a D-line coach. You already know who the next guy is when Larry Johnson retires because he's already on staff. Thank y'all for tapping into this bonus episode right here on Locked On Buckeyes. We're going to have another bonus episode coming up on Thursday outside of the Big Ten Squad show. It was recently on the portal with Brian Smith. It's a new recruiting and NIL show that Brian Smith is doing daily. And I was on that. I'm going to try to just cross-promote and tap into Brian Hartline. We'll talk about Brian Hartline on the show, but try to get that show going and gain some traction. It's good stuff. Brian's been covering recruiting for a very long time. And the fact that the Locked On Podcast Network has him doing a show about recruiting and NIL and the portal all wrapped up into one, it's a massive luxury and benefit that the Locked On Podcast Network has Brian leading that show. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. We're up out of here, Buckeye fans, on a Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow morning.